Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our free webinar session presented by ClickLearn. Today's topic is going to be the future of user adoption with ClickLearn's user experience panel. And we estimate that today's webinar will take about 30 minutes of your time, including some time at the end for a Q&A. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. So all attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. With that being said, I'd like everyone to submit questions through the question panel during the session or wait until the end for the Q&A. And please remember to stay muted during the session. Now I'd like to introduce you all to Fadi Kanan, Director of Strategic Partnerships at ClickLearn. Hey, how are you doing today?
Good, Robbie. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well, thanks.
All right, so I know we have about half an hour, so I'd like to just kind of jump right into it. So I just have a few slides to show. I really want to talk about why you should consider user adoption or having a user adoption solution, kind of the real importance and value of it. And then I'm actually going to show you the product itself, and we're going to document some processes and convert that into different learning formats, whether that's video or written documentation. And then we're going to actually play the role of a new end user, right? Whether I'm new to the organization, new to the company, and I need to figure out how to use Business Central, for example, so I can be guided within the application itself. So just a little bit about us. So ClickLearn is a user adoption platform that captures your processes in essentially any business system that you're using, and then converts that and creates different learning formats, whether, as I said, different types of learning, interactive videos, written documentation, or even being guided within the application itself. So that's the core problem that we solve is a user adoption problem. And so the real problem with user adoption, whenever you're rolling out a new business application, is that change, right? Change is constant; it never actually ends. So whether you're rolling out a new business application, you're upgrading yours, whatever the case may be, change is always constant because one, it being a new application itself. Processes always change. I can guarantee you that, and people change. So it becomes really, really valuable to now centralize this knowledge, right? Keep it within the organization so that can be shared with other employees and future employees that join an organization. Because as you're, rolling out, let's say Business Central, for example, these are expensive projects that you're doing, and it becomes very, very valuable that user adoption is high, because if users aren't using it or entering data into, let's say, Business Central, the product itself becomes pretty useless, right? It's only as good as the data that you put into it. And if you don't know the processes, your specific processes and how to do so, you're going to encounter a ton of pushback, right, from these users. So, and there's really a disconnect, I would say, between the people that are implementing it and the end users, right? End users typically may not be so involved in the planning and the implementation process of the new business system. It's only towards the end where they get included. And so how do you introduce a new business system like Business Central to a new user when they have tons of processes they need to learn or relearn? It becomes a real challenge. So the importance of making that as simple as possible becomes super, super valuable, I would say. So what I plan to show you today, and kind of the key value of having a user adoption solution, because there's tons of free options on the market, right? You could be a small organization that maybe doesn't have a budget for a solution like ClickLearn. There's still ways for you to capture these processes just using, Camtasia or any kind of screen recording product on the market that's free. Of course, you can do that. That's a simple way of doing it. But if you're a larger organization and one that has budget for it, it becomes quite significant to consider a solution like ClickLearn. So with ClickLearn, you have the ability to record across multiple platforms. So not only Business Central, you may need to record a process that starts in Business Central, maybe goes to Excel, into a website, and back into Business Central. So with ClickLearn, you can record across multiple applications. And as I mentioned earlier, converting those recordings into different learning formats, because people learn in different ways. Some people like to read, some people like to watch videos, others just want to be guided on how to do so. Probably the biggest value that ClickLearn offers is our replay functionality. What replay does essentially is it does two things. One, keeps the information, documentation current and up to date. As I said, processes change. Microsoft is constantly pushing out updates. So, fields might move around, buttons might be added, removed, etc. So little changes are constantly happening, and it's very important that you keep your documentation up to date without having to re-record from scratch. So that's one half of replay. It keeps the material up to date, as we call it, evergreen. The second thing that replay does is convert it into documentation and videos into different languages and dialects. Because if you're a global organization, you have teams scattered throughout the world, it becomes really important to have the process is exactly the same, right? But the language spoken is much different. So we're able to convert the recordings into different languages. Now, about the end user experience, because I've been kind of speaking about the creation of the material and the editing and keeping it up to date, the end user really has no involvement in that from a ClickLearn perspective, right? There's really two users. There's an author, one that's creating the documentation, editing it, keeping it up to date. And then the second user, which is the end user, is not involved in that. Their job is to just digest that information, right? So their view is in two ways. One is a learning portal, so they can come in here, and this of course can be integrated into a learning management system. So if you have an LMS system, all the videos and written documentation can be exported into your LMS. Or you can use our ClickLearn learning portal, so you can host the material here, so it can access all the videos and written documentation. But I would say that kind of the future and the next wave for us is to have all that within the application itself. So if I'm inside Business Central, I do not need to leave the application in order to learn how to do a specific process. So it's really having my hand held the entire time while I'm inside of Business Central, so I can watch a video or even be guided on how to do that process. So literally just show me how to do it within the application itself. And there's a few advanced features like AI chat, so I can use natural language. So I can ask the AI chat, hey, how do I do this or how do I do that? And it will respond to me with my company's specific processes, right? These are not generic web answers. So let's actually jump into the product itself. So I've talked a little bit about the authors and the end users. We're going to come back to the authors now, and we're going to pretend like we're an author that's going to create some documentation. So I'm going to show my screen in just a second here while I get set up. All right, should be able to see my screen now. So what I'm showing you now is where the authors live. It's called ClickLearn Studio. This is where I'm going to record all my processes, edit them, publish them, and maintain them. So if I want to create a new recording, simply I go to New, create a new recording. We'll give it a name. Let's say we want to learn how to create a new account inside of Business Central. So now I have Business Central up and running in the background here. And in order to start recording, I hit the big red button. And now it's going to record my processes. So it's a little bit more in depth than just a screen recorder. So you can probably see that green little box being highlighted every time I hover my mouse around. So ClickLearn won't start recording until it actually, I highlight, I wait for the green box to appear, and then I click. So it's not going to capture my crazy mouse movements or anything like that. So if we go to customers here, wait for that green box to appear, click on it. For time's sake, we'll make the process pretty quick and short. We'll do a couple of steps here. Let's say we need to enter a name, and let's say an address. So let's say that is my process. So create a new customer, hit new, hit the template, give it an, enter a name and enter an address. Let's say that's it. I'll hit stop, and I can see the steps that were captured here. So maybe I need to make a quick edit. I'm taking a break. I want to come back. I can do a lot here. But to do the in-depth editing, I'll hit stop recording. Let's say I'm satisfied with what I've done so far. We'll get put back into the ClickLearn Studio where I can start the editing processes. So if I hit Start Editor, what ClickLearn is doing now, it's creating all those different learning formats. So it's creating the different interactive videos, the written documentation, with the voice captions and the written captions all for me. So you can see here, it's kind of captured my steps on how to create a new account. Click on Customers, select New, hit the template, enter a name and address. So I, of course, as an author, can do a whole bunch of editing, right? I can add additional context to, for example, don't use an acronym when you're entering a company name. Make sure you use the full name. But essentially, it's not only, hey, do this, but why you're doing this step, why we want you to do this. I think it becomes really important when you kind of give a reason why end users need to do a specific task or step. It becomes pretty helpful. So again, you can do a whole bunch of editing. I can add additional context. Maybe I'm not happy with this screenshot. I can crop it, change it as well. But let's take a look at the different learning formats that it was created here. So here you can see 6, where it's a show me video, one being a show me video, which is a video that I just watched. A try me video, which is an interactive video. So we'll click on that. It'll pop up here.
Click on the navigation menu item customers.
So you could probably hear the voiceover as well. So that's automatically done by ClickLearn, but it's not only the written, but the voiceover as well. So now I, as an end user, can actually, this is almost like a sandbox environment where I can kind of click around, and I, as an end user, won't be afraid to make mistakes or mess up anything because it's a simulated environment. But I can get a feel for the process, as we call it, building your muscle memory. So you can see here, it's guiding me on where to step. So I'll kind of mute the voiceover in the background, but it's essentially guiding me on the actual next step, right? So I know where to go, click on new, okay. So essentially building up my muscle memory where I'm guided. You can also test the end user, right? So if maybe this person's new to the organization, or we're about to launch a Business Central, and before we let our end users onto the application itself, we want to test them to see, hey, did they grasp the training? Do they understand the requirements of how to do these specific processes? So now ClickLearn's not showing me where to click on. I have to, based off the training, know where I'm supposed to go. So it'll only go to the next step, the next page, if I click on the right field. If I click around and I'm hitting here, I'm hitting the toolbar, after a few clicks, it's now guiding me on where to go to. So ClickLearn is recording all these clicks, and so we know exactly where users are failing, where they're succeeding, and as an author, you get to determine what is a passing grade, what is your organization's determine what's a passing grade or not. So I can see, for the first step, I nailed it, but on the second one, I failed miserably. And then at the end, we get a result, and this will determine, hey, maybe I need to go back and do some additional training, right? And of course, there's some other written documentation. So if I need a PDF document or Word document, that's all accessible as well. And so I can download that to my machine, of course, or this is all accessible through the learning portal. But it's also accessible within the application itself, which I'll show you. So this is the view for the actual author. I want you to now, we're going to transition to the actual end user. So we're not editing, we're not creating the documentation. All we're doing is digesting it, right? We're going to consume that documentation and material. So I'll stop. Okay. Business Central, reloaded here. So once I open Business Central, in the top right corner, you're going to see in just in a second is our what we call our user experience panel. So this panel is built inside of Business Central, and we've really taken all that material and now placed it inside of the panel here. So there's some cool things that I'm going to kind of walk through here. We have a notifications tab. So if you ever need to notify end users that are in Business Central, maybe, hey, we're taking Business Central down for a few hours for maintenance, or there's just a coffee in the lunchroom, whatever the case may be, end users can be notified, and they can be forced kind of really abrupt notifications where once I open Business Central, it kind of pops up in my face and I need to exit out in order to continue on. Or can they be more casual, where it's on the side, and it could be something like, hey, we've updated this training material, or we've loaded more training material inside of the user experience panel. Click here to find out more. We have a chat functionality, so I can use human language and ask it a question. So how do I do a specific process? And it will respond to me in human language. And it's only going to search through the recordings that we have created, and it's not going to scour the internet for an infinite amount of answers, right? These are very detailed and targeted responses that you're going to receive. And I'll show an example in just a moment, but I want to go back to the Home tab where we have a list of my different processes, right? So as an author, I created a couple of processes, and they're accessible here for that end user to view. So let's say we're going to create a new customer here. I'll click on the Create New Customer tab, and here's all my written steps. So I can see that here. I can watch a video on how to do that process within the application itself.
Click on the navigation menu, Item Customers. Click on the navigation menu.
Or my favorite way is just show me how to do it, right? So I don't need to go and knock on someone's door down the hall or schedule a meeting with someone. If I'm unsure of how to do a specific process and that process is recorded, then I can just literally guide myself. So you can see my little helper here kind of guiding me step by step on how to do that specific process. And if you notice, every time I click through the next step, it gets crossed out. So I know exactly where I am throughout that process and throughout that journey. So it becomes very, very valuable when you have a system like this where it's helping the end user and making it as easy as possible for them to adapt to a new environment, right? As I said, if you're doing a new implementation and you're upgrading to, let's say, Business Central, it can be pretty daunting for an end user who's maybe has no experience with Business Central, or they're new to their organization, or maybe the processes within the organization have changed drastically. You really want to make it as easy as possible for them to get adapted to it. So by watching the videos, or if they want to read how to do that specific process, or just be guided step by step, knowing that this is there, that digital companion is there to assist and guide them throughout their journey, helps a lot, right? Boosts a lot of confidence. So let's maybe exit out of here, and let's go back, and I'll give you another example of the AI chat. So let's try, and hopefully I have this process, how to create a new vendor. So just using natural human language, ask it a question, and it's going to respond to me on how to do that specific process. So I've asked it, hey, how do I create a new vendor? And here's the list of steps, but it's linking me to a source. And a source is a process that was recorded by an author. So I can click on the source, and it takes me back to the very similar page that we viewed earlier. So here's all my written steps, how to do so. If I want to watch a video, I'll click on video, or assist, where again, I'm guided step by step on how to do that process. So this is kind of the real future where we see user adoption going, is within the application itself. So it's more than just even user adoption. You can upload different company assets into here, right? So I can upload maybe an HR manual, whatever the case, or a news from our CEO, or whatever the case may be. So we can host and upload any documentation you would like as well. Not only business processes and how to use the system, but company information, an employee handbook, etc. It's all kind of centralized in one location. As I said, these recordings can also be hosted in a portal. So not only do you have it within the application itself, but you also receive a portal to view that material. So let's say we'll focus on Business Central now, and here's a recording, and it's going to look very similar to what we viewed from the author's perspective. But from here, I can't do any editing. I can, as I said, as an end user, I can only consume. So I can come in here and see the steps with the written instructions, watch a video, etc.
Click on the navigation menu item Customers.
Of course, if this needs to be converted to different languages, I have an example. We'll change it to French, back to Business Central. And then as you can see here, everything's converted to a different language.
Cliquez sur l'élément de menu de navigation. Customers.
So really helping global organizations dealing with people that were speaking different languages across the world. So I know that was a bit of a time crunch. I've shown you a lot, but I guess we'll open the floor to any questions. I know we have a few minutes to do so. So I can't see the chat, Robbie. So you're gonna have to guide me if there's anything.
We did end up getting 2 in the Q&A. So
Okay.
Teresa was asking earlier on, what is the learning curve for ClickLearn and the time and effort required to set up a number of processes? And do you provide training and include best practices?
So that's a great question. So the learning curve, it's pretty simple, I would say, because essentially you're just kind of clicking and recapture the screenshots. The time it takes to now edit, that's where you would have to invest some time, and that is a variable, right? It depends on how much detail do you want to do during the editing process. How much context do you want to add? Do you want to group steps together? Do you want to have a decision tree? Of course, that takes a little bit more time. But to actually record a process, I would almost ask you, how long does it take for you to click through your process? Because that's how long it's going to take to actually record. But it's really the time invested in the editing process that is a variable, because we have some customers that are very, very detail oriented and they spend more time editing. Others are a little bit more laid back and they don't spend as much time editing. So that's a variable there. Regarding training, we provide training. It's pretty much unlimited, where we have kind of one-on-one training with you'll spend time with one of our trainers that will kind of guide you through and make you become a ClickLearn expert. We also have a ClickLearn community, and I can share that afterwards as well. You don't need to sign up or anything. It's not for any marketing purposes, but it's really more of a where you can post questions and be answered from one of our team members and support you through an online community. So you have other ClickLearn users where you can learn from and interact with as well. So you receive kind of one-on-one training, as well as our access to our ClickLearn community, where you're spending time with not only other ClickLearn users, but members of our team.
Beautiful. So Teresa also asked, at the beginning it was said that ClickLearn can be used in BC and across apps. Does the process have to always begin in BC? No,
it does not. So because you might have a process that starts in Excel, then to Business Central. So there's no order in which a recording needs to start or end, really. It can start anywhere and finish anywhere.
Amazing. Curtis Pump also asked, in the test me section, are the results of these archived somewhere for viewing later?
Yes, they are. So they are viewable in our, can you still see my screen? It's showing the studio right now? Okay.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah. So we do have a dashboard where we're capturing all this information. So I know this is my demo environment. So the data, you might not see any statistics here. Oh, there we go. So we are capturing all this information, right? So we know where users are failing, where they're succeeding, but it can be more than that, right? What material they're consuming the most, material is being consumed the least, what end users are actually clicking on the recordings and viewing the recordings, and who hasn't done their training, etc. So we do have a dashboard with some fixed reports. You're also able to export this information. So OData URL, which means you can pop this into, let's say, Power BI or any data visualization tool, and then visualize the data however which way you please, which I would almost recommend, and a lot of our customers and clients do that. We capture the information and then we use a data visualization tool like Power BI to view those results.
Beautiful. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves, and you can ask. I have another one here too. So will AI know our company's processes without having to record them ourselves?
No, the market isn't that good yet, or AI isn't that good yet. So you still would have to, as I said, record your processes and capture it. And all the AIs, when I ask the AI the question, it's directing me to a source, right? It doesn't know your company's specific processes. Copilot doesn't know your specific processes. That's why you still have to record them. But it becomes a single source of truth, essentially. That the AI chat is just a way to find it quickly using natural human language.
Great. Well, it looks like that's all of our time for today. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. And I'd also like to thank Fadi again for presenting for us today. And with that, I hope you all have a great day, and we hope to see you again soon at one of our upcoming webinars.
Thanks all. Thanks for having me.